And what's he then that says I play the villain when this advice is free I give and honest, probable to thinking, and indeed the course to win the more again? But 'tis most easy the inclining Desdemona to subdue in any honest suit. She's framed as fruitful as the free elements, and then for her to win the more were to renounce his baptism, all seals and symbols of anthemic sin. His soul is so enfettered to her love that she may make, unmake, do as she lists, e'en as her appetite shall play the god with his weak function. How am I then a villain to counsel Cassio to this parallel course directly to his good? Divinity of hell. When devils will the blackest sins put on, they do suggest at first with heavenly shows, as I do now. For whiles this honest fool plies Desdemona to repair his fortune, and she for him pleads strongly to the more, I'll pour this pestilence into his ear, that she repeals him for her body's lust, and by how much she strives to do him good, she shall undo her credit with the more. So will I turn her virtue into pitch, and out of her own goodness make the net that shall enmesh them all. There you go, Shakespeare. For those of you that didn't recognize, it's Iago from Othello. I got a street cleaner coming by, so it's going to get loud maybe for a second. Who knows? Maybe my fancy new AI tools will filter all that out. Anyway, today's subject is William Shakespeare and the continuing influence he has on me and my work. I've talked about it a few times on this channel, and today I thought I'd just dedicate a whole video to talking about why Shakespeare matters so much to me. And if you like that, I used to do a lot of Shakespeare. I got a lot of it rattling around up here. I think I'm going to close this video with a little more. So if you like that, hang around. There'll be another one. But in the meantime, we're going to talk a little bit about why Shakespeare matters so much to me as a filmmaker, which is what I'm really trying to do right now, and really what this channel ostensibly is focusing on, is my filmmaking career. So Shakespeare. What makes Shakespeare so great? Why, 400 plus years later, do we even care about what this guy wrote about, what he said, what he was about? For me, the plays matter because they always are about at their core, very universal things that still matter as much today as they did back then, 450 years ago. Things like, for instance, that play, Othello, that's about jealousy, betrayal, anger, revenge, love. All those things are things that we still concern ourselves with in this day and age. And Shakespeare had a tendency to, when he would address any of these very common human themes, these universal human themes, I'll drink a little water if I have any. I guess I drank all that. Well, I'll get by. I'm going to try to do this without any editing, and I'm going to do more Shakespeare later, so we'll see how that goes. I may have to go get some water, but I'll keep you with me. Anyway, so Shakespeare addresses all of these universal themes, and he does it in such a deep way. He always, when he looks at any of these ideas, say, let's talk about, again, Othello, the idea of jealousy. He digs in deep and gets to how jealousy can just twist us. And this is an interesting thing because it's about belief more than actual reality. Like, Othello is fed lies. The speech I just did there is Iago setting in motion his plan to essentially trick Othello into believing that his wife, Desdemona, is having an affair with his second in command, Cassio. So he sets this all in motion. He has his own reasons. I think based on the play, he has some flimsy reasons. He thinks that maybe Othello slept with his wife. This is Iago I'm talking about now. I think he's also jealous of that Cassio gets promoted over him. There's a few different reasons, but the big jealousy story is, I think jealousy actually drives all the characters to some degree, certainly Iago and Othello. But Othello's jealousy is unfounded. He's just believing Iago's lies. But that jealousy causes him to murder his own wife, ultimately. Pretty sure that's what happens. I'm kidding. I haven't read that play in a second, but I'm sure that Othello murders Desdemona. That's how that all ends. And we have to go back and check up on that. I do have a pretty extensive knowledge of Shakespeare's plays, but it's been a second since I've touched a few of them. So that's one. I do know that monologue because I used to audition with that monologue. I never actually performed that role for real. But anyway, back to Shakespeare and why he matters. So he takes these deep themes and he just digs deep with them. He takes it to the extreme. Jealousy, it ends at murder. When we look at betrayal, obviously Iago betrays him at the deepest level, sends him to this jealous rage that causes him to commit murder. And there's racism in there. There's Othello is a Moor. So there's all of these themes that still matter to us today. And Shakespeare is so good at taking them to an extreme, but still making them believable and very human and very real. And the characters express themselves with this language that is just exceptional. Some of these plays are just like one long poem. They're written in verse, blank verse usually. I have a pentameter. But often in rhyming couplets, they do sonnets, they do also prose, they do non-verse material. And those switches around, say a lot about what's going on, who the characters are. It's just brilliant stuff. So it's those two things, I think, for me, are why those stories matter the most. And Shakespeare was writing in a kind of cinematic style early on. That's why I think that a lot of his plays translate to the screen so well. And that's why I think he matters a lot. So I am going to take you with me because I'm trying to do these new videos with no cuts and just kind of like, me here now and you here now watching me. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of water because speaking a lot, my mouth gets kind of dry. So, that's better. There we go. All right. Because I am going to close this out with a little more Shakespeare for you. So there's my little blurb about Shakespeare. Since I picked up the camera, I got to double check my framing here. Pull out my iPad and check it. But let's see. Yeah. Still live, right? Yeah, here we are. All right, that looks really crooked is what that looks. So let's fix that. Let's get you guys straight on. So this next piece that I'm going to do is from one of my favorite plays, Henry IV, Part 1. This is part of what's commonly known, I think, as the second tetralogy. But it is the prequel. That's what I loved about this too. Like I said, Shakespeare is not just a theater guy. I think he saw like a filmmaker sees when he was writing these plays. And anyway, he went back. So he wrote two sets of history plays. The first one that he wrote that he actually chronologically wrote in Shakespeare's life. He based it on Henry VI and Richard III. And it is essentially, I'm not as familiar with those plays, but I believe they just center around the battle with France, when Joan of Arc was there. And then, of course, it begins with the Richard III story, who's the kind of twisted, deformed brother or king, who murders a bunch of people in order to become king. And then, and that might even be opposite. I think it might be Henry VI. It ends with Richard III. Pretty sure that's actually the sequence. In any case, yes, that is it. Henry VI, Richard III. This, Henry IV, Part 1, is the second player in the second tetralogy, which is the prequel. It begins with Richard II and goes Henry IV, Part 1, Henry IV, Part 2, Henry V. My wife and I, Farah, did a great little video that if you haven't seen it, you should check out, where we talk about Kenneth Branagh's film of Henry V. Anyway, this is Henry IV. This is the first monologue I ever memorized. And that's why I wanted to do it. I'm playing the role of Hotspur. I'm probably a bit old for that role now, but back when I memorized this, I was probably 18, 19 years old, something like that, when I was a student at the University of Arizona. I know that's when I memorized that. And I'm pretty sure this is the first Shakespearean monologue that I memorized. Anyway, this is Hotspur. It's not a soliloquy like the first one, the Iago monologue. That was a direct address. I did that because the character's alone on the stage when you see the soliloquies. And there's a lot of convention that suggests speaking to the audience. And in film, I've seen it done a few different ways. I really like it when they talk to the camera, so that's why I did that. All right. In this speech, the Hotspur speech, the character I'm playing in Henry IV, Part 1, he's speaking to his uncle and his father about a potential rebellion against Henry IV, who has taken the throne by force, murdering his cousin, Richard II, which is the first play in this tetralogy. It's all about that. At this point, Henry's the king, and I believe it's Hotspur's father, Westmoreland, if I'm saying that right. I may be incorrect about that. He's the one that helps Henry become king and betray his cousin and basically overthrow him and kill him and become Henry IV. So Henry IV, Part 1, Hotspur. But soft, I pray you, did King Richard then proclaim my brother, Edmund Mortimer, heir to the crown? Ha! Nay, then I cannot blame his cousin king that wished him on the barren mountain starve. But shall it be that you, that set the crown upon the head of this forgetful man, and for his sake wear the detested blot of murderous subornation, shall it be that you, a world of curses undergo, being the agents or the base second means, the cords, the ladder, or the hangman rather? Oh, pardon me that I descend so low to show the line and the predicament wherein you range under this subtle king. Shall it for shame be spoken in these days, or fill up chronicles in time to come, that men of your nobility and power did gauge them both, as both of you, God pardon it, have done, to put down Richard, that sweet, lovely rose, and plant this thorn, this canker, Bolingbroke? And shall it in more shame be further spoken that you are fooled, discarded, and shook off by him for whom these shames ye underwent? No. Yet time serves wherein you may redeem your vanished honors and restore yourselves into the good thoughts of the world again. Revenge the jeering and disdained contempt of this proud king, who studies day and night to answer all the debt he owes to you, e'en with the bloody payment of your debts. Therefore I say, oh, let the hours be short, till fields and blows and groans applaud our sport.